I've asked you to do this thought exercise in the past, and I'll ask you to do it again now. I want you to think of the first SARS virus release as a certain quantity. Imagine, for example, that they made a certain quantity of a self-replicating RNA molecule that has an RNA-dependent RNA polymerase in it and a couple proteins in it and a couple of packaging sequences that Robert Malone would have been working on when he was a grad student back in the retrovirus days. And those packaging sequences will cause, for a limited period of time, that RNA to be replicated and repackaged and shed. And that they've been studying this technology for quite some time as soon as they figured out that all eukaryotes are shedding genetic signals into a very limited set of genetic signals, and that system could be hijacked. And occasionally maybe it is hijacked. So what they did was they took those signals that Nathan Wolfe and Peter Daszak and Ralph Baric were studying but could never really get to grow in culture, and they made a large quantity of them, and then they threw them out of an airplane in China in 2002, and then they did their absolute best to see how far those molecules would go from the point where they threw the bottle. And it turned out that they could follow that molecule or traces of that molecule through 10,000 people. And of those 10,000 people, 700 of them died. Now I want you to take that same thought experiment and imagine that they improved what they had in the bottle. And then instead of making just one bottle, they made 5 bottles, and they threw 1 bottle in Italy, 1 bottle in Wuhan, 1 bottle in Iran, and they let it go. How far can we track it? Now I want you to imagine that wasn't done on a clean chalkboard. That wasn't done on a background with no signals, but it was done on a background that was hot. A background where all kinds of these signals exist, so that even if you don't really find the one you put out there, there's lots of other signals to find. And since the national security state knows that there was a specific signal, but the pharmaceutical companies don't, the DoD contractors don't, most of the people that are on Substack don't, and since the only conclusion that people can come to is that there's no virus, then the idea of a hot background on which they spilled some paint and then told you that the paint was evidence of the hot background, and wherever they found the hot background was evidence that the paint was spreading, they have misconstrued a background signal and synthetic virology with pandemic potential. And they've been doing it for 20 years with Peter Daszak, with Nathan Wolfe, and then at the beginning of the pandemic, they put people in all corners of the internet to make sure that any useful questioning of the narrative would never happen. With any useful alternative interpretations of the biology of what happened would never happen. And the only thing that we would get is an argument about whether it was a lab leak or gain of function, whether it was natural or gain of function, or whether there are any viruses at all. And so the continued testing and deployment of self-replicating RNAs with immunogens on them can go on into the future forever, because our kids are going to grow up in a world where they believe that pandemic potential exists and that we don't have to worry about synthetic virology. We don't have to worry about synthetic biology. We don't have to worry about the fact that if they wanted to, they could make enough of any PCR signal or any RNA sequence and then distribute it anywhere they wanted to find it. We don't want to talk about that.